So I'm reaching out to other creative people who may be dyslexic. So a
And
big shout
actually,
out to those people.
okay. So, can we just begin? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So my name is Kim Percy, and I'm a visual artist. I'm a designer. I'm a curator. I also teach at university, and I'm a mum.
Wow,
Mum
wow,
to
that's a
kids.
lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm also
which takes
dyslexic.
excellent. I was going to say which takes up most of your time. I guess dyslexia is it doesn't take up any of your time, but it's kind of there in the background. So where are you based? Are you based? You're saying Victoria of South, and that's the
Yes.
south of Australia, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm in a little town called Dalesford,
Hmm.
which is about an hour and a half out of Melbourne, sort of northwest.
Yeah.
I'm up in the hills.
Ah,
I have a right on the edge of the bush, and I've got the town that direction, and I've got the bush this direction. So I'm in a pretty lovely spot. It's all hilly here.
you're making me very, very envious indeed. Very envious indeed. I'll be
Yeah.
there next year, as I say. Be amazing. Okay, so can we just begin? Just get some background. What's dyslexia provision like in the area that you live in? I'm guessing Melbourne's a fairly important city in Australia. So,
Yes.
am I right in saying that there's good dyslexia provision? There's a good society or organisation there. How does it work?
I would probably beg to differ, actually. I think that Australia is still quite far behind in terms of our awareness of dyslexia. And I actually met with a university student who's studying psychology yesterday, who's really struggling to get accommodations.
Ah,
Um, so we're still very much in the early days of breaking through, and there is some good things happening. There's some great organisations. Spelled is a really great advocacy and organisation, but just as far as classrooms and your everyday student through primary school all the way through to university, we're still having to fight for basic accommodations. If I can tell you just a story about that. So my journey into dyslexia comes through my son, and he was diagnosed about 6 years ago. He was about 7 years old. Um, and at that time, I still was facing principals of schools saying, is your son really dyslexic, or is it just an excuse?
ah, right.
So we're still up against this the myths and the people not comprehending or understanding what dyslexia is,
Yeah.
and we don't do phonics literacy across the board.
Okay.
We're still very much in that old school whole word literacy
Oh,
programs.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Wow. And is this across Australia? I mean, is Australia
Yes.
like America a federal system, or is it a single system?
No, we have a Commonwealth. So we have a single government. The states, there are differences within the states, but
Yeah.
it's fairly universal across. I believe that South Australia is now doing phonics screening in foundation, but it hasn't been
Wow.
sort of moved across Australia
Yeah.
yet.
So when you say that it's good in patches but not in patches, is this left to the schools governing boards, or what? How does or
Yes.
the individual teachers? Or right? Okay.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the schools here in our town, we still have student teachers who don't believe in phonics and believe that dyslexia is rare or not something that they need to worry about. And we do have some really progressive teachers that are on board
Yeah.
and looking for those signs, but
Yeah.
very few and far between.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and you may not know this actually, and so forgive me for asking sort of a question which
Yeah.
you may not know. Do you know of the level of provision for instance, Aboriginal kids in Australia? Is
Mm.
there is there an issue there, or
Lots of issues.
yeah,
You may or may not know that we're just approaching a referendum. And it's the first time that we're asking the people of Australia, do they want an Aboriginal voice in Parliament? So
oh,
we're
okay,
um, so in terms of education, the First Nations Indigenous population here are still struggling with, in some areas of
yeah,
with literacy and
yeah,
health and other issues. But, you know, we're also seeing this huge rise of First Nation people into the university system, for example. So, you know, it's happening both sides.
yeah,
And
yeah,
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 it's in terms of dyslexia and First Nations, I don't think there's been any studies that I know of, that
yeah,
I'm aware of.
yeah, yeah. No, I've looked around and it's difficult to find anything. There's First Nation disability forums, but I've never seen anything on dyslexia.
No, and I think what you're probably seeing is, you know, is it a specific learning difficulty because of the lack of education,
Yeah,
or the holes in education, or the mismatch of language
yeah,
within communities, or is it dyslexia?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't think that
yeah,
I don't think we're at a stage yet that we can probably
yeah. And I'm guessing
start
that
to target that.
a lot of Aborigine families are in the lower socioeconomic brackets anyway, and so that's also going to impact on levels of education and
Yes,
literacy. Yeah,
yes, yes. And there's a very big difference between urban Indigenous people and more, especially desert and more remote regions.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
but again, there's some great work being done in that area.
yeah,
I'm just not aware of what the
yeah,
studies may
yeah,
be.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Beautiful. But you are a researcher yourself, I believe,
Yes.
and you've done some
Yes.
work on
So
dyslexia. Yeah, could you talk about this?
yeah, so I'm a PhD candidate here in Victoria, and I'm looking at dyslexia in terms of visual art and in terms of creativity. And it's a practice-based PhD. So I'm looking at my own art practice as
Hmm.
being my subject. And I'm also using an autoethnographical kind of a methodology to support that as well. So
Well,
yeah,
for those lay people among us, could you explain what that means?
yes. All right. So it means that, so practice-based methodology means that the practice, so my artwork leads the research,
Okay.
not necessarily the other way around, which is great. Yet, because I am looking at dyslexia, I also wanted to look at what is dyslexia? How does it affect myself? How does it affect creativity? Is there a link? Um, you know, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence about that. So I'm now looking at what that looks like today and how does it affect me as a art practitioner.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to, I mean, could you share some of your findings? I mean, how does it affect you, and what kinds of
Mm.
links have you found?
Yes, so I'm really looking at the strengths of dyslexia as opposed to the deficits of
Yeah.
dyslexia, though I am touching on that in some of my work. The positive attributes that I see with dyslexia are around that visual spatial narrative, narrative reasoning, looking at pattern recognition, looking at big think picture thinking, looking at some of those critical thinking, and these are all attributes that also align with visual art and being an
Right.
artist, so an art practice. So I'm looking at where are those strengths in dyslexia and where are those strengths also echoed in creative practice. And for me, what does that look like? And so I got diagnosed with dyslexia last year. So I'm a new, it's a new awareness for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm now looking back on my childhood, and I'm looking back on myself as a young adult, and thinking about what were those strengths, what were those attributes that I had back then. What do they look like as I trace it through my art practice, and where has that got me now? So that's part of what I've been doing.
Yeah. And you can see a definite narrative there rather than just things here and things there. You can see something that's coherent, I'm guessing.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yep.
And you also mentioned something else, just to clarify. You said orthoethnographic.
Autoethnographic.
Autoethnographic,
So
forgive me.
autoethnographic, yes. So that's looking at me as so it's looking at my story, basically, is in a nutshell. So that deep dive into my own practice and into my own background, and looking at how that then matches up with the research that I'm reading in literature, my literature review.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot here. This isn't your oral defense, don't worry.
Okay.
But it sounds like an incredibly personal journey. But at the same time, I'm guessing that most of these personal journeys have manifestations or have things that can come from them. Do you think, what do you think can come from this? Do you think there's insights and work that can come from this research?
Yeah, and I think that personal journey is only part of it. I'm really interested in what the research is also saying. And I have conducted an initial survey, anonymous survey of artists, and who may or may not believe that they're dyslexic. And the findings are supporting my own research and my own personal story. So it's a survey I'd like to open up and continue with. So my aim with all of this is to broaden awareness. My aim is to connect with people that may, I think that there's a couple of things happening. And one is that we've got people who are like myself, who are out and proud and talking about dyslexia, and yourself, Martin. We've also got people who have not disclosed. And in Australia, we're looking at about 43% of people not disclosing. But the higher percentage, I believe, is people who do not know.
Yeah.
And especially in creative industries, where we're seeing probably a larger proportion of dyslexic people being attracted to creative industries. A lot of those people probably don't know they're dyslexic. They would have been like myself, who are getting along with their lives thinking, this is difficult. Why is this difficult? Why can't I do these things that other people can do? Probably struggling with mental health issues, probably feeling may be underemployed, maybe facing a whole range of concerns. And it's those people really that I'm wanting to connect with. And so art and making art is a way of being able to have a broader conversation than what I could do if I was just writing academic papers.
Yeah. And I'm guessing also that not only the academic papers, but the art itself can go towards, in some way, it can contribute to that tide of changing the narrative about how people think of dyslexia. Would you like other creatives to contact you for part of your research, or are you already over that particular hump?
No, I'm not. So yes, I would like other creatives, because what I'm finding is it's very, very difficult to find people who are visual artists, practicing visual artists, and who also are happy to talk about dyslexia, because there's very few and far between, and I'm finding it's a bit of a closed door. And so, yes, I'd love people to contact me. I'd love to have a chat.
And that's,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Mm.